Let's speak now to the former Director of Professional Standards for the Met, Stephen Roberts, who can join us. Mr. Roberts, thanks for your time here on GB News. First, your reaction to what the Commission is saying about wanting more powers from the Home Secretary to tackle this. I mean, I think a lot of people will be very surprised that, the Commissioner can't actually sack his own officers.
Yes, that is a problem, undoubtedly. But it's a problem that has its roots in the Met, particularly, asking the Home Office to set up these independent tribunals. We believe that an independent tribunal chaired by an independent, legally qualified individual would give the public some confidence that police disciplinary procedures were indeed pretty robust. But it turned out that these independent tribunals were rather more lenient than chief officers had been before the reform. So I think we need to get that reform reversed. But what we mustn't forget is that we have a presumption in this country that people are innocent of an offence until proven guilty. That's important. And that being the case, officers who've been sacked will always have some sort of recourse to the civil courts. And if this becomes a sort of numbers game of proving that we've sacked a large number of officers, what will inevitably follow will be a whole panoply of legal cases against the Commissioner in the civil courts, which will use up public funds and tie up lawyers for years to come. So it's all got to be done very carefully, it's got to be done legally, and it's got to be done with one eye to the impact of this on morale within the service and recruitment into the service.
Yeah, what would you make then of also the fact that 90 frontline officers have been switched from tackling serious crime, including anti-terrorism, to actually trying to root out these individuals? I mean, what do you think that will do within the force itself?
It's absolutely the right decision. I have no doubt whatsoever that part of the reason for the problem that we have at the moment is that professional standards resources, the number of officers that you've got investigating badly behaved police officers, has been allowed to fall as a result of the funding cuts that happened over the last 10 years. Successive commissioners have made the decision to withdraw officers from professional standards work to put them into frontline policing. But I'm afraid the analogy would be a hospital. If you don't keep disinfecting the floors, if you don't keep doctors and nurses washing their hands, sooner or later you will get a rise in infections. You've got to keep up that regular day-to-day grind of trying to keep the organisation safe, trying to keep it legal. And that means going out all the time looking for bad behaviour, not waiting for somebody to make an allegation, but actually going out looking for corrupt behaviour, for bad behaviour, for violent behaviour. And that, I'm afraid, does take quite a lot of staff, and they have to be amongst the best staff that you will have available to you for policing London.
But you will know if, and we hope not, if there is a terrorist outrage or something similar, the question will be asked, why weren't there enough officers on that particular case? Why were they sort of doing a bureaucratic job, if you like, of trying to chase down bad police officers?
That's absolutely the problem. That's the problem that faces all commissioners when it comes to professional standards work. Yeah. Where is the priority? And those priorities will change from time to time, inevitably. OK. But as a chief officer, your biggest problem is not deciding what to do. Your biggest problem is deciding what not to do.
Yeah, interesting point. Well, on that very point, in terms of the vetting procedure, obviously, that Labour has said, that the national standards of vetting need to be reorganised so it applies to all forces. Susan Hall, who's the chair of the London Assembly Crime Committee, says this vetting service is not fit for purpose. And obviously, if that's got right, then you don't have to sort of have this retrograde action once they're actually within the service itself.
Well, I'm a little concerned that too much reliance is being placed on the vetting service. Vetting is absolutely essential, but it's not enough on its own. There's only a certain amount that you can do with the vetting service. Essentially, it's about checking records. But where a perfectly and apparently decent officer enters the service and later becomes corrupt or later becomes violent, you've got to go looking for him or her.
And what about then other police forces outside the Met? Because I know, Sir Mark, has looked at this issue of what he called police regulations rather than normal employment law. I mean, should the police service across the country be taken to task as you would do any other employee in any other line of work?
I'm afraid it's not quite possible. There is an issue, and it's a real issue, that if we simply sack somebody on the basis of an allegation or suspend somebody on the basis of an allegation, it then becomes possible for criminals to actually disrupt any investigation that's being held against them. Suppose, for example, that you are suspected of a serious fraud or armed robbery or drug trafficking. Well, the easiest thing in the world would be for you to arrange for some of your friends, some of your associates to make allegations against the squad that was investigating you. Have the whole lot of them suspended, and then you are free to go about your criminal business. So there does have to be a very careful weighing up of what the evidence is against a particular officer or a group of officers before you take any action.
Yeah, interesting point. And I think, Stephen, you've obviously outlined why this is such a headache, not just for the Met Commissioner, but for the Home Secretary and everyone else concerned. But thanks for taking us through all those points. And, of course, we'll see what emerges with the various reviews of the procedures. Thank you very much indeed.